Everybody, thanks for coming out tonight. Well, I had just graduated with my master's degree in mechanical engineering. I had spent the past 7 years of my life studying thermodynamics of fluid flow and solving differential equations. And of differential equations. But we were in the middle of an economic downturn when I graduated, and so I couldn't find an engineering job. And instead, I found myself surrounded by kids, 3 and 4 and 5 years old, with runny noses and binkies and occasional poopy pants, as a part-time preschool teacher at this YMCA. And loved. To this day, it's one of my favorite jobs I've ever had. I love that age group of kids. Part of it, I think, is just that sense of wonder that they have. We had this rule at school that there were certain potty words, and one day I walked by the bathroom and I heard this little voice from inside, "Poop, poop, poop, poop." And I stopped and I was like, "Ashley, are you okay?" "Yeah." "Poop, poop, poop, poop." She just loved hearing the word. And we had, with the kids that age, they're so open, they're not yet jaded by humanity. We had a kid named Austin. Blonde hair, crew cut, and always, every day, he wore cowboy boots to school. But sometimes he would walk out of the pretend area and he'd be wearing this full-length pink satin gown with a little tiara, and he would just sashay all over the classroom. Because they're just so cute, these little people. We had a girl, Clara, and she was from France. Her family was from France, and so her mom dressed her up in these funky European sweaters and always put her hair in this offset ponytail. She was just adorable. Well, my boss there at the preschool, she gave me this special assignment. She gave me the kids that didn't take a nap after lunch, and she told me to go do something quiet with them. She said, read them a story or something. So I started by taking them to the room next door, and we'd sit down, in a little semicircle, and I'd read them a storybook, like the Bernstein Bears or Frog and Toad or something like that. But then I remembered how my dad used to tell stories to me and my brother as we were sitting around a campfire. And those are some of my favorite memories growing up. My dad is a real quiet guy. He's a chemist, a real introvert. But sitting around the campfire, he would just come up with these stories off the cuff, and for 10 or 15 minutes, take me and my brother to these other worlds, where crickets were so large that you could ride on the back of them, or the marshmallow that had landed in the fire, it might come alive and start talking to you at any moment. So I started making up stories for the kids there. There was one about this misunderstood monster, who had all the worst, scariest possible traits. "It's the big-eared, bushy-browed, warty-nosed, smelly-breath, picnic-eating monster, run!" But once you got to know the monster, you realized that he, like most monsters in life, is really not that scary, and he just wants a friend. Well, and that was actually the first time I ever told a story like that, like this, which is what I do now for a living. Well, one day at school, we had this new kid come in. His name was Zach. He was 3 years old, and he had already been kicked out of 4 other preschools. Poor guy. Rumor had it that if he got kicked out of our school, he wouldn't be allowed in another preschool in the entire state. And so we're really pulling for Zach. And he walked in, and when he first walked in, I expected this little devil child, with glowing red eyes and his head spinning around on his neck. But he had this little cherub face, chubby cheeks and clear eyes. And he was really kind. A lot of times to the staff and other kids too. He liked to go and hand out goldfish crackers at snack. And if another kid came late to circle time, he would scoot aside and make sure there was room for him. But then every once in a while, he'd get this little look. His mouth would turn up, and his eyes would get really big. And then half a second later, he would knock over some other kid's blocks that had been working on all morning, or push some other kid aside so he could get to the toy that they were playing. Well, the staff, we decided as a group to try to teach Zach empathy. so every time something happened, we would ask questions, like we'd say like, Zach, well, how would you feel if you'd been working on, this big tower of blocks all day, and somebody came and knocked it over? Or we'd ask the other child, Brian, how did it feel when Zachary came over and pushed you out of the way so he could get to that toy? And then sure enough, one day I was out on the playground, and I saw this kid. He was playing with a dump truck, and it was like the cool dump truck at school. It was the one that actually worked. Fill it up with sand and dump it out. And Zach came out, and he saw the kid over there, and I saw that look. His mouth turned up, his eyes got real big, and then all of a sudden his face calmed down, and he ran over to the jungle gym. He started climbing on the jungle gym. I went up to him, I was like, Zach, way to make a good choice, buddy. I gave him a high five and talked with the other teachers, and they had seen it too. And it wasn't like a switch had gotten flipped. He still continued to get in trouble now and then, but he was making progress, and the other teachers noticed it, and his parents noticed it too. Well, eventually I did get an engineering job, and my last day at the Y, I was sitting around with the non-NAP kids in our little circle. Another teacher came in and she gave me this framed poem. She had gotten the kids to put their hands in some blue and purple paint and put them on some butcher paper, and then she wrote out the words. It's a fairly well-known poem, I think, among educators and people who work with kids. It's real short. It's 100 years from now, it won't matter what your bank account was, or how big your house was, or what kind of car that you had. But the world may be a different place, you were important in the life of a child. But as I read it to the kids gathered around in circle there, it sounded more like 100 years from now, it won't matter what your bank account was or how big your house was. I couldn't even finish. I was bawling. This other teacher, I had to hand it to her so she could read it to the kids. Kids were just looking at me with these confused look on their faces. I cleaned myself up and I said, I'm just really going to miss you guys. Which was true. But the bigger truth was that I felt like that poem was calling me out. Because I was going for the house and the bank account. And I felt like I was abandoning those kids that I've been with day in and day out for nearly 2 years now, watching them grow and change and develop. Well, 3 years later, I'm at my engineering job, and I'm a project manager for this mechanical contractor. And the project that I'm working on is called Montlake Terrace Office Building. It's this really generic building. There's no tenants for it yet. Eventually it'll fill up with like life insurance companies and real estate sales, but at the moment it's just empty, and we're just building the shell and core, they call it. I hang up the phone at my desk there, and I had just finished talking to this vendor, this guy who sells heating and cooling vents. And I look up and I see the heating and cooling vents in my building, and I realize that my job is to sit behind this computer in this cubicle in an endless sea of cubicles and make sure other people have heating vents in their cubicles in their endless seas of cubicles in this weird real-life version of an M.C. Escher painting. And then I have a vision. It's me on my deathbed. My grandson comes up to me. He says, Grandpa, what did you do for work? And I say, I installed heating and cooling systems in commercial office buildings. And the thought of that being my last sentence to my grandson makes my stomach twist and turn. And I know I have to do something. I see that poem with the kid's prints on it. I gotta do something else. And it's not like there's anything wrong with engineering, I mean, it's a good, honest job. It's not like you're robbing banks or being a Wall Street banker or anything. And people, they work at cubicles and they need heating and cooling and the proper amount of outside air so that they don't die at their desk. And some people, it's even like the right job. You know, it makes them come alive and they love to get into calculations and everything. But it doesn't for me. You know, especially after working with those kids and sharing those sacred moments of storytelling, taking them to other worlds like my father had done for me, and watching them grow and change and develop because I was there, because I was important in their lives. So I think I got to do something with some more heart work, you know, something that like lets people understand themselves and how they relate to other people differently. And I think maybe it's going to be this storytelling thing or something in the arts. So I start telling other people this, and they tell me that I'm crazy. You know, everybody is like, well, you know, other artists that I meet, they're like, maybe you should set some money aside. Random people I meet on the plane, well, you know, engineering sure is a good job. Maybe you should think about writing children's books. You can do that on the side. And all these voices are telling me that it's a bad idea, except for one voice, and it's not the little voice inside my head. It's the voice of my buddy Walt. Walt is he's a little bit older than I am, and I consider him to be a mentor. He's had a lot of jobs in his life. You know, he's been like a baker. He was a record executive who worked with Cat Stevens back in the day, and he's been a paralegal and a bellboy, all these crazy jobs. And he tells me, Rick, I've quit a lot of jobs in my life, and I've never once regretted it.
empty sheet pirouette when I think that I am free. Watch my empty silhouettes who close their eyes but still can see. No one taught them etiquette. I will show another me. Today I don't need a replacement. I'll tell them what the smile on my face meant.